we kind of gave a little introduction a minute ago. Yes. We told you we were going to talk to Jeff. Well, this is Jeff. Jeff Piotrowski is a hurricane chaser. I guess that's how we're going to describe you, right?
Yes.
A hurricane chaser. All right. And give us a little bit of an intro on what we're going to see here, because I've already mentioned it. You were there at landfall when Harvey made its landfall just north of Corpus Christi, kind of the Rockport area, where the eye made its landfall, and you were in the middle of it.
That's right. We were in Rockport waiting for the eye, and I took shelter in a car wash in the blue shed, and boy, did that eye come in on. It was vicious.
Okay.
Very vicious.
Now, I haven't seen the blue shed, but apparently this video with the blue shed has gone viral a little bit. So here we are. Man, there it is. I'm going to let you start taking over. Tell us about what that
we took shelter in the car washer because I knew the winds were going to be coming down 35 highway. And as we took shelter here, the winds were starting to get up to around 80 and then 90. And then about 30 minutes later, the winds were gusting about 110. And then finally started gusting 120. I'm constantly checking the radar, and I started seeing over our heads the winds are up to around 130 to 150 at about 2,000 feet above our head. And there's a couple other chasers back to the south there, and they told me that they could hear the roar of a vortex. And as the eye wall came in on top of us, it's just a wall of destruction. 140-mile-an-hour winds, 130 to 140 gusts down the 35 corridor. And as we had a building immediately to the side of the car wash here collapsed, a vortex hit it, and when it hit it, it exploded, and the entire wall of debris came over the bays here. This is what hit us, and as this hit us, I retreated back to the car. When I retreated back to the car, the live stream went down, and a lot of people thought I was trapped or killed, actually. I wasn't, and I didn't realize the live stream had went down, and the cell service stayed up for a while, but then as that happened, the back part was starting to rip off, and the roar at this time, again, the winds were gusting in surges like 130, 140, and the roar, I've got I-beams, steel I-beams breaking off, the roof's ripping off behind us in the back here, and the sound is just deafening, and we're just waiting for that eye wall, because the eye wall was literally a half mile from us, where you go from 130, 140-mile-an-hour winds sustained with just flying missile debris, and then 2 minutes later, I'm down to 30 miles an hour, and then the stars start coming out, and we wait until it dies down. We have to clear the path because we need to find a different shelter, because this has been compromised, to go to a new location. As we get out of this into the eye wall, I look up and I see seagulls flying in the eye wall where it's calm, which is not uncommon.
Okay, I'm going to make you stop for just a minute and breathe. Just take a breath. You got us all a little bit excited. We're going to slow down for just a minute. Okay, we're in the middle of the eye wall. Let's review. When a hurricane makes its landfall, the eye of the storm is calmer. It's quieter typically, and you've got this incredible force of winds as it makes its landfall. And if you're right in the middle of it, then you get that calm motion, and that's why you see the eye when you see a landfall when it's quiet, and then there's that backside of it, which you're going to get the winds at the opposite direction, and it's going to be crazy. So in our story, you're telling us when you were there, you went through the beginning part, and then when you got to the calm part, not only was it calm, but you looked up, and say it again.
You can see seagulls flying in the air. I had a cute, big spotlight.
It's crazy. And
I could see it on the dual pole Doppler from Corpus, and I knew the seagulls were in there because they've happened before with Matthew and other hurricanes. And we looked up, and there's seagulls flying. And as we retreated to the Walmart, for a better, closest shelter, as this eye made landfall in the eye, we could look up, and this was the amazing part, absolutely amazing. We went partly cloudy, and as I'm looking off to the east, and the east eye wall, it was a vertical wall like I'm in a big tube, big funnel. You can see up about 20, 30,000 feet. The storms with the lightning, it was just like clear skies, and I could see this storm rotating around the wall, and it was a vertical stadium as high as you could see, and it was like we was in a bowl in a funnel, and I could see straight up about 30,000 feet, and it was this wall rotating violently, and we were inside the eye. It was absolutely, and this is literally at 1:30 in the morning. It's absolutely the most incredible thing I've ever seen. But then when that backside eye was coming, we got to Walmart.
Part two, right?
Part two,
yeah.
And boy, was it a knockout punch. It was absolutely super scary. We got to Walmart, and I could hear it in a distance. The only way to describe this, folks, is you could hear if you took a baseball bat with a tin can, and you're outside on a calm day, and you hear something hitting a tin can, you know there's something bad is coming. You hear missile debris hitting buildings, you hear things breaking, shattering, trees ripping off. And remember that place has been hit, and there's debris everywhere, so you hear this wall of debris coming back at you. And within seconds of that wind and that sound, the missile debris started flying by the cars again and over the Walmart. And We had an 18-wheeler flip about 2 minutes into the deal. Cell service went dead, and that was it for the night. We were done. And it was about a 3-hour really rough ride on the backside. And around sunup, then that devastation was exposed.
I'm glad you mentioned that time, because I just want you to sort of talk us through again, because the video that we were actually looking at is just that initial eye wall. So give us an idea a little bit about the time frame of how long does this process take, because obviously we're looking at 2 minutes of video, and you had to talk about—
It was hours.
You had to move. I don't know if we made that point very clear, but you were in one location for that first eye wall, and then you felt that it was no longer safe to be there.
It was totally compromised. We had to move.
Yeah, so you moved to a different location. Fortunately, you had a lot of resources, and I just want to pause for a moment and just sort of stress that this isn't the first time you've done this.
No, I've done this for 35 years.
Yeah,
most people don't know this. I've chased 35 years. I hold the world record, filmed almost 850 tornadoes, and this is about my 50th hurricane. So
there's some planning that goes into this. There's a lot of thought process, and you know the safest place to be. And as you mentioned, you were in a car wash because that was at that time, and then again, figuring out this is no longer the safest place to be. And I remember you said you had some resources that advised you to get to a certain place, and you got there, and even then you kind of had to move around a little bit. So again, what's the time frame again on all this?
I got there before sundown. I was there during the day and scouting, what I call it scouting, looking at places where the most fortified buildings are going to be. Okay, you got to know those places. Talk to the police, talk to the emergency manager, talk to the locals, say what's going to flood, where's the storm surge going to go. The storm surge should not go past 35. So I had that back in my mind. So okay, I'm safe here on this lane. And talked to the fire department. They said go to this location if the storm surge gets higher than this. We're retreating to the water towers, 20-foot elevation. So I talked to all the local officials, had a really good escape plan with different maps and roads to get to those places. So it was well thought out, well planned. Talked to local officials there. But the beginning of it, the hurricane force winds started coming in around 6 o'clock. We started having winds 70 to 80 miles an hour. So we had about almost 12 hours of almost hurricane force winds, and then sane winds of like 100 plus to 140 gusts. That went on for about 5 hours. But between the time it started, the calm eye, and then the back eye, it was a long duration event. It was very nerve-wracking, to put it mildly, and it's scary. It was super. I don't like landfalling hurricanes at night. They're extremely scary because you just hear so many things breaking apart, and multiple people. Buildings and houses collapsed, and people were trapped in their houses overnight until the morning, until they could literally crawl out of their houses, literally.
Okay, so to wrap things up, I want to show the video one more time, and while we're watching it, what's kind of gone viral is the blue building,
yes,
right?
The blue shed.
The blue shed, that's what it is.
The blue shed. I didn't know this was.
Tell us about the blue shed.
I don't know a lot about it. I think it's a concrete, office out front here, and obviously a lot of people were amazed that the blue shed stood, and it's went viral. I mean, everybody's just hashtagging blue shed, and the car wash is now famous worldwide. But yeah, the blue shed survived, and I did go back the next morning and take pictures of it. I almost hugged it because we both survived, and but it's one of those things that you don't know what's going on behind the scenes on social. But that's just one of those things that took off, and it was a very entertaining night, but very scary as well. But I want to say, not only for the people in Houston, but also along the Gulf Coast, everybody in South Texas is going to need everybody's help across America to help you guys rebuild and get the city going again. Also, the area affected by the hurricane, they have a lot of devastation down there. So, for me personally, I just, it's going to take a lot of resources from locals and government and just every neighbors and neighbors helping neighbors. It's going to take a lot of help to help everybody. So the whole nation's behind you guys. We're going to bring a lot of help down here and help you guys, because that's the most important thing.
I'm glad you brought up this, and I'm going to keep this discussion going a little bit here. You've been chasing hurricanes for over 30 years. Have you ever seen one that's pulled what this thing has done?
No, this
U-turn.
No, this has had some tricks in it.
Flooding. I mean.
No, this has had definitely some wild card tricks in it. You've got to be on your toes, and I'm still a little bit nervous about this coming back down the Gulf. I don't think we're going to go back to hurricane. We got to watch it. But tropical storm maybe as it regens. We'll see what happens when it comes back down in the Gulf and bands of storms. But this is tricky. Let me say one thing. I think it's probably the most important thing I'm going to say tonight. There's no two hurricanes that are ever alike in history. You can take a Cat 4, and this Cat 4 will not be the same as any Cat 4 in the world. They're all different. And no, if you didn't have damage from Ike, I was here for Ike down in Galveston. Every hurricane's different. And that's what people need to understand. And the locals, when I was down at Rockport, they all said, we survived this hurricane.
Right.
We survived this one. It didn't flood
work
here. We didn't have damage here. Well, guess what? I went back to those same neighborhoods where those people said it didn't happen. And guess what? Those neighborhoods were leveled.
Yep.
You cannot take a previous hurricane and say it won't happen to you. It will. You've got to prepare. And you know, the main reason I showed the video in Periscope, the number one reason, if people see how vicious and how wicked these eye walls are, and the local officials and TV stations say evacuate, get off the coast, we got a rapidly intensifying hurricane approaching the coast, you need to do it because bad stuff is going to happen. And that's the main reason I even went live with Periscope, is to show the people the gravity of the situation when these big hurricanes make landfall, because they do a lot of destruction.
Okay, all right. Are you on social media then? How can we find you?
Oh, absolutely. Jeff_Piotrowski for Twitter, twisterchasers.com as far as the website. And that's, I'm sure you can hashtag those and you'll find me, I'm sure.
All right, we're going to look for Blue Shed too, I think.
Yes,
right?
Blue Shed for sure.
Okay. All right, so what we'll do is I'll make sure, if you're following me already, John Dawson, Fox 26, then I'll make sure and share Jeff's accounts so that we can kind of make those easy for you to find them. And again, thanks for making the stop by and hanging out with us and sharing that video in your stories. Man, those are something else. Let's go ahead and take it back to Caitlin and Tom.
I am so incredibly in awe of everything I just witnessed from you in terms of that description and your passion for what you do. Thank you so much for coming in. That was amazing.
Catching our breath now.
I know, I'm catching mine. That was so fascinating. You've given us such a unique opportunity to see something that we all, I think, wonder about. We see the satellite images, but that was beyond anything that I've seen.
If you recall seeing the satellite image of that eye wall,
it was clear.
You know, it was a stunning piece of Mother Nature there. So hats off to you.
I'm literally